All right.
You are now live.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. What's up, everybody? Check in. All right. Today we got our lesson about Black Wall Street. All right. So we're gonna let everybody check in. So with me talking about Black Wall Street is kind of an essence of everything that's been going on, because a lot of people are wondering, want to know about our history. And I felt like this would be a good topic for us to get into, especially during the times that we're in, because a lot of people are looking to do for self. A lot of people are doing business as well. But before we get started, I wanted to talk about how we can be better as a people before we get into the lesson. All right, a lot of people, we have to govern ourselves. I talk about this a lot. We have to govern ourselves first as a people before we kind of get into the bigger picture of things and trying to save the world. Because if we're not governing ourselves first, how could we go govern the world? And I think a lot of people are missing that point, because if you're not right within first, physically, mentally, and everything, you can't go out into the world to try to save somebody else, because it's just not going to work, because your foundation is more than likely shaky. So I challenge you to be a better version of yourself today. And I know that a lot of people, it feels uncomfortable getting out of your shell that you are in, but we have to recognize our wrongdoing. A big thing that a lot of people can't do for themselves is mirror meditation. That's what I tell you about. Like, when is the last time you told yourself you love yourself? You might not even know that's a thing to do, but we have to unlearn and relearn what's going on in the world with ourselves and our household, and then we go out and put our energy into the world. Because we don't put the energy into ourselves first, when we get out into the world, the energy and the fuel that we got out there, it won't last that long. And a lot of people have to recognize that. This is why you have people burning out, because they don't have that true foundation of what's going on within first, and then going out into the world. Because if you just go out into the world, try to save the world, you will be burnt out, because the world is so massive, and you're gonna be here, you're gonna be there. You gotta have a mission, you gotta have a plan, you gotta have something structured before you get in these streets. All right, and I think a lot of people, you really need to understand that with self-governance. All right, because it starts with us as a people. And a lot of people, they like to say this white man, the devil, the white man this, the white man hold me down, the white man that. And I'm like, you need to govern yourself first. And I'll give you the best example for me personally, that I had to have this realization with myself, like mid-year, around the time George Floyd went down. And I tell this story a lot because it resonates. And it was a reflection that I had to do within, and it was very uncomfortable, and it hurted. So the Black Agenda, it was birthed out of me having to look at myself as a person and what I was doing within the community, all right? Because I would find myself a lot of the time saying, why don't people know this? Why don't people do this? Why don't people do that? How in the hell they don't know this? But then at the same time, I'm saying all of that, I had to reflect. I was like, damn, I almost sound like the goddamn oppressor. I sound like I'm the white man, right? To some degree. And then once I said that, I was like, all right, we have these resources, we have this knowledge. I know people who are in positions to help others. Why don't I bring that as a collective together, and then we make a change going forward from there? But you see the story, don't miss this part that I just said, all right, before we get started on the lesson. It started with me. It started with me. That's what you have to realize. It starts with you. I didn't just go out there and try to, start the Black Agenda, get into it. I had a purpose from within that made me start it, and that is the legacy that I'm creating with the Black Agenda. All right, because I want the main objective of the Black Agenda is not a want, it's what's happening right now. Is you have to be proactive and not reactive. All right, because we have to have a plan, and it's going to be a plan, and it has to be sustainable as well. We're not looking for no one-hit wonder success. We're not looking for nothing for shock value. We're looking for something where you're looking forward to getting educated on your finances, your history, mindfulness, and a little bit of politics. And we gotta sprinkle a little bit of politics in there, because we gotta know a little bit of everything. I'm not the politic person, but that doesn't mean I don't study it. All right, just because I don't like it, that don't mean you don't study it. And a lot of people have to get that in their head as well. But before we get started, I just want to talk about that as self-governance. All right, so that's the biggest thing we need to focus on before we get out here into this whole I'm gonna save the world type mentality and things. We gotta train our minds, train our bodies, and train ourselves overall before we get out here and try to save the world. But nonetheless, we're gonna get started. All right, we good? All right. So before we get started on our lesson, how many people have heard of Black Wall Street? Type in number one if you heard of Black Wall Street. All right, if you ever heard of Black Wall Street. All right. I posted some on the timeline this week, so we could have like a kind of a preface to the lesson. But we'll have some of the same information, but I'll be delving a little bit deeper about some of the things that aren't highlighted in the history unless you go deep into research about Black Wall Street. All right. So with Black Wall Street, it was founded in 1865 by O.W. Gurley. Now, O.W. Gurley, he was a smart businessman. That's what I can say from the studies that I found out about him. He had land already, but he was an opportunist because he was booming in the oil field. But he sold his successful, it was like a grocery store that he had the description that I'm getting from it. And then he moved over to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he bought more land. And once he bought that land, he was able to get other people to come in and basically fund them into the city. And then they built up Black Wall Street. The thing with Black Wall Street, they made it so successful. In 10 years, from 1910 to 1920, they damn near quadrupled. They went from a population of about 2,000 to a population of about 9,000. All right, this is where they had the second part. We got banks. They have restaurants, schools, hotels, lawyers, etc. All right, they also had doctors as well in there. This is what made them so affluent in the Black Wall Street, because they basically were a do for self by themselves, and they really had no white outside influence. They had the business basically sold up so well to the point where they had white people that was coming into the town to try to borrow from them, and they did borrow from the black community money. So that was another thing that's not really talked about. They had it so good that you had white people coming to borrow from them. And that was one of the things that made them so affluent. All right. Now, far as the education, all right, the education. Another thing with a lot of people don't know about the education in Black Wall Street, the teachers in Black Wall Street were some of the highest paid people in the town. All right, and a lot of people miss that point. All right, now why would they have the teachers being some of the highest paid people in the town? Anybody take a guess for me right quick? Why would they have the teachers being some of the highest paid people there in town? What is that telling you? All right, and how it can relate to today? What is that telling you? All right. So them being the highest paid, they trained them. All right, it was they weren't basic training, but more or less they taught them about chemistry. They taught them about things that really mattered. They gave them the skills to pay the bills, as people say, how to use their hands, and also gave them a high intellect. All right, as well in Black Wall Street. That's why it was so successful. The education was so great that people could literally leave their school, go to schools like Spelman, and get white collar jobs, as they explained in the research that I did. All right, we got a question?
No, just comments.
Okay.
Basically, education is empowerment.
Yeah, definitely. So education is empowerment. That was one of the main things that they prided themselves on, passing down the education for the kids. All right, and I think that's something we have to get back to right now, because it's a point that a lot of people miss, that education is a premium, especially when you're being educated about the right thing and you're getting the right information that could, propel the culture forward. All right, because right now our education is a little bit watered down. And I'll just give you one personal example before we move on with education. For myself, I am an educator in the Palm Beach County school system. But one thing that I noticed, it was last year. All right, so I graduated high school in 2011. All right, this was 9 years ago. So that seemed like, but yeah, that was quick. But 9 years ago, graduated in the same school system that I'm teaching in, right? So I'm teaching world history. Now, last year, what I noticed is when we were doing our midterms and we're doing the final exams, you will not believe this. All right, they literally had the same exact final exam and midterms as they did when I was in high school. I mean, the pictures, the words, everything was exact T. This year, it was the first time that they changed it up a little bit. I know it's history, they say it doesn't change, but in 9 years, some information has to be updated. I know it's history, but that is something that's very watered down and outdated. All right, and I feel like we have to do a better job as a society doing that. And shout out to everybody that's doing like homeschooling and whatnot. But let's kind of move on. All right. So with number 2, the banks, restaurants, schools, hotels, lawyers, and doctors. A lot of the times with Black Wall Street, it was seen as a place to escape oppression, which was economic, political, and oppression that they was trying to escape. All right. And then the thing with that being oppression, fueling them to integrate with one another more in the black community. the thing that happened was once the segregation rose in the city, and it's crazy how history is repeating itself right now. All right, as segregation rose against black people, guess what else rose? Just take a guess what else rose amongst the black community after they had white versus black and whatnot, but the segregation against black people rose. Guess what else rose? Let me see if we get somebody to guess that real quick. All right, guess what else rose? Let's see if we can get somebody before we move on. I kind of want to get them rolling.
Repeat the question.
It said, all right, so during this time period, there was segregation between blacks and white. All right, so once segregation against the blacks, basically, trying to put the clamps on what blacks were doing, making their money and whatnot, not having access to certain things, that started to rise. All right, it started to be more apparent, basically. All right, what else do you think happened basically in correlation to that? All right, what else rose up with the segregation? What else rose? And it's kind of reminiscent of what's going on today, just a little bit of what's going on today.
Our economy.
Oh yeah, who said that?
Fresh Evolution 9.
All right, good. Fresh Evolution 9. Yes, our economy rose as well. So that was one of the biggest things. All right, segregation rose. So you know what they said? It was like, all right, they're basically like, F y'all. All right, the black dollar started to circulate more within the black community. As segregation rose, they was like, all right, we're going to start spending more money in our community. That was one of the biggest things that happened, all right? And it was very beautiful. That's why the community was so affluent as well, because they didn't see it as, oh, we got to go out there and fight this. They were like, all right, we just going to keep doing us. We've been winning, all right? Why are we going to stop now, all right? All right, so let's, we're going to go to number 3. All right, so I didn't mention before, Black Wall Street, it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma as well. All right, now with it being in Oklahoma, I think it was I forget the exact name of the land, but the land was basically plotted out, and O.W. Gurley, he bought that land that was there because they were migrating, and I forget how the story exactly goes, but he was basically an opportunist, found that land, bought it, and that's how they built up Black Wall Street. I kind of mentioned that a little earlier, but what was the demise basically of Black Wall Street? Was the roots of racism and segregation. All right, so there was a guy by the name of Dick Rowland. All right, so I believe he was a little over a teenager, probably in his early 20s. I can't remember exactly. So with Dick Rowland, he was getting onto an elevator, and back then they had elevator operators. The people that press the button and they sit in the chair and whatnot. It was a white woman, and as he was getting on the elevator, the story goes as he might have tripped or stepped on her foot or something. And then she screamed out this this cry, all right? And somebody heard it, and then once they got off the elevator, she basically screamed she basically accused him of raping her, all right? And then Dick Rowland, he evaded, the scene and whatnot, but he was eventually found. They took him to court. Now, what was interesting about the court, all right, that was going on, the whole black community, all right, they stood outside of the courthouse as he was getting his judgment and whatnot that was going on, and the white community was out there as well. So it was a clash basically that happened in front of the courthouse, all right, which led to the bickering. And once the fight was over and whatnot, all right, because they was in fear that Mr. Rowland was going to get killed by a white mob basically. So the black community showed up for him basically at court. So that's the basis of that. But the fight kind of broke out there. Everybody went their separate ways. But what happened was the white mob, they came into the Black Wall Street area. They started burning down houses and trying to, fight black people. And this led to, they call it a riot, but it wasn't a riot, so to speak. In my opinion, from the research that I've done, it was more of a massacre, all right, due to the nature of how it happened. Because it went on for about 24 hours, all right. It was 300 plus dead, and the military had to come in. They had the National Guard come in. But one thing that's not pointed out about this is that when the damn National Guard and they had the Army and whoever else come in, they were actually bombing the damn people there, the military. They weren't helping the black people. They were actually bombing them because there was no way that white mob was able to disrupt all of those blocks of land and things of that nature. They're actually getting bombed by the U.S. military. Now, this was because they didn't want a black thriving community there. They didn't want to see this during that time. Y'all gotta remember, this is during the 1920s, 1910s, 1930s. We just really got that type of freedom, all right? And they did not like to see that, all right? They had 1,200 homes that were burnt, and it was 10K homeless. Now, what the government did was put them into internment camps. So this is basically like your concentration camps, but without, the whole, hopefully it wasn't starving them, nothing. I really didn't see nothing about that, but they were basically homeless. But what speaks well is the resiliency of that community, all right? One thing that happened, it was rebuilt by the end of 1921. They burnt down everything, the entire town, and it was June 1st, 1921. By the end of June 1921, the entire town was almost rebuilt, all right? And they refused to leave. The black people, they refused to leave because that was their territory, and they stood their ground there. They also rebuilt their economy somewhat, and then by 1942, they had 200 black-owned businesses that were back there, all right? And they took pride in it as well. So that was the basis of Black Wall Street that I wanted to go over, because a lot of people, I think they're missing the point. A lot of people don't like history, but we have to know stuff like this because it's going to happen again at some point. And I believe right now it is happening. All right, as we see things with police brutality, we see racism, and it's very apparent and obvious. We have more people now. I want to do this lesson because we have more people now that are trying to get into business, that are trying to get into entrepreneurship, that are trying to work together with the community, that are trying to circulate the dollar. As we are getting more overt racism, the black community is starting to rely on one another more. And like I've been saying, it's like a black renaissance that's going on right now. And I think we need, and I believe, and I know we should follow kind of this model of the Black Wall Street to get ourselves back together. And I mentioned earlier in the other video that we have to come together, but you have to govern yourself first. All right, because a lot of people like, how are we going to start this? How are we going to do this? It's going to start within first. All right, like I said earlier in the beginning of it, it's going to start within you. All right, you have to govern yourself the right way before you go put that energy into the world, because if you're not right within, you will not be able to save the world. All right, you have to take care of your home first and then spread out. All right, and we could look at O.W. Gurley as the example of that as well, because he had his successful company first, made his money, and then he went to that town and got another shop, all right, after he sold his original shop, and then built it up from there and brought people in. That's how you do the business. That's how you build one another up. Somebody has to be that person that's going to sacrifice, that's going to have that discipline to basically spark the birth of a nation, all right? And I believe we have that going on right now. I know we have that going on right now, and we could build up off of that, all right? So right now, if we have any questions, I'll be taking questions. We got any? Q&A time. Q&A time. Bring it on. What y'all got? Y'all got any education, anything to add to it, to this lesson? I know it was a quick one, but I had to go by history. I know y'all used to be talking about money and things of that nature, but history is also part of the Black Agenda, because if we don't know it, we may be doomed to repeat it, all right? All right, so what we got?
Nothing.
Nothing so
But I didn't know about the camps. Like, they taught us about the Japanese camps.
Yeah, they had camps for them there. It was basically like this makeshift housing that they had because they basically burnt down the town. But the people, they didn't leave, so they had to give them housing. They had to make it look good, like they were helping them. I mean, which they did, but at the same time, they were the ones that kind of burnt it down. And the white town didn't, basically get any flack. Oh yeah, another thing. Now that I'm thinking about it, Mr. Dick Rowland, who they accused of rape, he was found not guilty as well. So that was a lie. He was a free man, all right? That was a lie. So that was another thing as well. So he did not rape her, or he wasn't, convicted of rape or anything. So it came out that it was a lie, that, he raped her. So that was another thing. A whole town got burnt down based off of a lie. And in my opinion, it was something that they wanted to happen anyways. That little incident basically gave them a reason to do what they did. All right, so if we don't have any questions, I got a couple announcements while we're here. Give me 1 second. All right, so today we're gonna do a giveaway. All right, because I know everybody probably like looking at it. We're gonna do a giveaway today, but I want to make a couple announcements. All right, so we do have the book club going on. I keep forgetting about that, to tell you about that. I posted about it, but we do have the book club. You can click the link in the bio and get into the book club. But also as well, I announced on my personal live, all right, that we have the Think and Learn Like an Entrepreneur flashcards. They are finally here. All right. Got a question?
What would you say one of the biggest issues that could be hindering us from getting back to Black Wall Street? And do you think Black Wall Street will ever go back to what it used to be?
All right. Who asked that question? So I could
The culture creator _ and then all smells.
All right. So how can we get back there? Basically, is what they're supposed to ask you. All right. So with Black Wall Street, how we could get back there? We have to govern ourselves first. All right. So we have to start taking accountability for what we are doing as our person, even our younger selves, and break traditionalism. All right, because a lot of the times people are just following what they see. All right, by their parents. If they're not living a fruitful life, clearly you might not live as fruitful of life if you don't unlearn those things that you were taught. But if you start governing yourself first in a way that could propel the community and you're being the example, that's how we could get back there. Remember, we only talked about really one man that got this thing started. It doesn't take, it took a lot of people to get it done, but it took one man right here, O.W. Gurley, to get that spark. And another thing about O.W. Gurley, he wasn't liked by everybody either, all right, because he took on the principles of Booker T. Washington and W.E. Du Bois, although they had, two conflicting personalities. You could say W.E. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington were like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King in some ways. So he wasn't all that well liked by some people, but he was able to get the job done. And I think we all have to realize if we look at Black Panther, the movie, his dad, and when they were in the spiritual realm together, he was saying that to be a good king, you're not going to be liked by everybody, because he's trying to figure out how could he basically make the community fruitful in Wakanda. But he told me you're not going to be liked by everybody. And O.W. Gurley, he embodied that, but he was able to build something that was so great that we still talk about it today, and it had such an impact on the world. But it definitely have to start with ourselves and breaking that traditionalism. Somebody got to jump out the damn window, as I say, all right? Somebody has to be that entrepreneur. Somebody has to be that spark. Somebody has to be that leader that could basically speak to all cultures, all right, and then bring one another in. And we have to know our allies as well, because we don't have to, need other people, but we need to know our allies, and we got to be educated, all right? Because education is the gateway to success, in my opinion, because the more you know, the more you grow, all right? So we got no more questions? All right, so we'll get back to the announcement. So like I was saying, last night, I announced in my personal live that the Think and Learn Like an Entrepreneur flashcards came in. All right, so if you got some cheering, all right, if you got any students, they finally came in. This is something I'm very, very proud of, all right? The Think and Learn Like an Entrepreneur flashcards, they came in, and I couldn't be more excited. Like last night, I talked about it and how it took so long to get these things done. And we still got them on pre-order, and they're ready to go. So you can click the link in the bio, all right, for that, if you're interested in getting it. Now, something like this with the Think and Learn Like an Entrepreneur flashcards, this is something that could break traditionalism, as y'all asked me the questions, all right? How many people have said that they wish their parents taught them about certain words, about credit, about stock and things of that nature? This is something that kills that because it addresses those things, all right, and it has that education. And then another thing, like I mentioned last night, representation. It's not a lot of us at home that have books or had playing cards or anything with a black face on them, all right? This could be a spark, to a young child to be like, that could be me one day. It could spark a culture, and it could ignite, the young child's mind as well with everything that's going on right now, because we have the representation really does matter, all right? But as far as our giveaway today, all right, before we get into that, all right, let's see. Because giveaway, all right, so if you just joined it or you've never been on the Black Agenda, so I do a giveaway at the end of pretty much every live. But you probably had to be somebody that was following me before or paying attention to the lesson today. All right, but this one will be real easy for y'all, all right? Maybe. Let's see what'll be easiest for y'all. All right, so we're talking about Black Wall Street, all right? Who were amongst some of the highest paid employees? That's the question. Who were amongst some of the highest paid employees? Who were amongst some of the highest paid employees? What you got? We don't got no answer yet?
Mm-mm.
What?
I thought it was an easy question.
Who are among some of the highest paid employees that we mentioned?
Teachers.
All right, who was that?
Miss Red Dillon.
Miss Red. Oh, Roberta. All right, I know who that is. All right.
And then all smells a second.
I'll smell second. All right, so you said Roberta Dillon. All right, so today we're gonna do a T-shirt giveaway. So if you Roberta, just DM me your shirt size, and yeah, we will get that to you. And let me know which shirt that you want as well, and we'll get that to you. We'll get that to you. But if there aren't any questions, I will be ending the live. All right. I thank everybody for tuning in today to get this quick lesson. And always tune in to Black Agenda. And I want to leave you with this. If you're going to do anything else, remember, govern yourself well, and then you could go out into the world and branch out, all right? Don't just try to go out into the world. Govern yourself first, and then branch out, and then we all come together due to your self-governance, your education, your intellect, all right? Because the smarter you are, the more you're going to attract people in that crowd that you want around you, all right? And then we could change things going from there. But if we have no questions, peace and love, family. Thank you for tuning in. See you later.